What's up guys, welcome to Paul's Hardware. I have a lot to cover today because we're doing a build with all the parts that you see here, and this is just one of 3 builds that I have planned to end the year. For October, we have this one, a little bit of a Halloween theme, another one coming in November, and then a final one in December, and all of this is leading up to our annual Extra Life charity live stream, which is taking place Saturday, December 6th. I will be streaming along with my good friend Kyle, aka Bitwit, so mark your calendars, it's gonna be lots of fun. For today's build, we have a sponsor, that is Thermaltake. They provided a bunch of components here, so a big thank you to them. Also a huge thank you to MSI, who's provided our motherboard and the RTX 5080 graphics card. This is a premium high-end build with a 9800X 3D CPU, and we're building in the new View 600 TG case from Thermaltake. We have the Future Dusk finish, which is that nice deep purple that we first saw at Computex, and we're gonna attempt to dress it up a little bit in the Halloween fashion with some added accessories that I have collected kind of last minute, but we're gonna see what happens. We have lots of questions to answer as we go through this build, so let's get started.
Excellent!
Today's video is brought to you by the Paul's Hardware store on paulshardware.net, the only official source for Paul's Hardware merchandise, tantalizing t-shirts, brilliant beer sets, high-quality hoodies, and more, all featuring the classic thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers, or the 8-bit thumbscrew for tasteful and refined viewers who hate curves. New designs are added sporadically and at random, so head over to paulshardware.net and get some of that sweet, sweet merch right now. Or not right now, after you watch the video. Either way. What a glorious assortment of parts that we have here. By the way, this build is also going to be given away. Did I mention that in the intro? All 3 builds are going to be giveaways, and you can actually already enter the giveaway down in the video's description. I'll be picking the winner in about 2 weeks, so keep an eye on my community page for that announcement, and all you have to do to enter is head over to our Extra Life charity page. You do not have to donate. Donations are optional, but they're always appreciated. Going over the parts we have arrayed in this impressive stack though, starting off with our Thermaltake components, we have the View 600 TG, which is a full tower case, has a wraparound tempered glass, it has support for up to 420mm radiators, and it's available in a variety of colors, including the Future Dust that we have, but they have some other really cool colors that were showed off at Computex, and I like how Thermaltake has sort of gone beyond the typical black and white finish for these cases. The case has a spot down on the bottom where you can add a 6-inch LCD panel, so that's what we're going to be adding, the View 600 TG version of the 6-inch LCD. Look, it even matches the Future Dusk finish, and by the way, black and snow, that's your black and white. We've also got butter caramel and mint strawberry. We'll be populating the case with the SWA fans. These are the 120mm version, ARGB sync. They have magnetic connectors, so they are daisy chainable. And those are going to match very nicely with the fans in our MagFlow 360 Ultra 360 AIO. That's going to be cooling our CPU. The CPU, as I already mentioned, is the 9800X 3D, because let's face it, there's really no better CPU if you're building a gaming computer right now, especially if you want to get maximum frames out of a higher end graphics card like an RTX 5080. To power everything, we have the Thermaltake Tough Power GT 1000 watt, which is 80 plus gold rated. It's also ATX 3.1 PCIe Gen 5.1 ready. So we have the 12V2x6 connector for our RTX 5080. Up here we have more fans, because we're gonna put a lot of fans in this case, also to supplement the RGB. We have ToughRam XG RGB D5. That's a 32 gig memory kit, DDR5 6000 speed. So that's going to kind of complete the set in terms of our Thermaltake components, and also is going to give us lots of RGB options, so we'll see how we can configure this once everything is assembled. Moving over to our MSI components, we have the Expert GeForce RTX 5080, which is MSI's unique design that they actually came out with last generation. They've continued it this generation. It has a very distinct look with sort of a dark gray, kind of a gunmetal finish. And what I like about this GPU is it doesn't have integrated RGBs, which gives us a little bit more flexibility for coordinating the remaining RGBs in the build. The same goes for the MSI Mag X870E Tomahawk Wi-Fi. I guess I should say MAG. This board does have some green accents on it, which sort of led me to go with the green accents on our cables. And while it does have RGB headers on it, so you can use it to control RGB lighting, there's no RGB on the motherboard itself. So again, just trying to simplify things in terms of RGB so we can have one bit of software. We're going to use the Thermaltake software to control everything, as well as the LCD. And then since this is our October build, we're gonna Halloween it up a little bit with some additional green accents on our cable mod sleeve kit. And we've got the supplemental extension here for the 12V2x6 connector. And we've got a little bit of a throwback to the older school days. Remember back before RGB was super popular, we had black lights, UV lights in builds to help light things up that are UV reactive. I've already checked this and it will light up these cables. And then we might decorate a little bit more with some Spideys and some spider web. Of course, the eventual winner of this build is free to remove all the Halloween elements if they want. And you know what? They could even remove the cable extensions if they weren't into the bright green, because we do have all black cables on our power supply. But that is a rundown of our parts. Let's get this build put together so we can see how it looks. So here is our first look at the View 600 TG, kind of our first look. First look at like a production sample here, as opposed to the ones that we looked at over at Computex. What do you guys think of this finish, this future Dusk? It's purple, purplish, I guess mostly purple. Joe, what color do you think it is?
Eggplant.
Eggplant.
No.
Anyway, it is whatever color you guys think it is. Let me know in the comments. But up here at the top we have room for up to a 420mm radiator. You also have the side intake. Well, it could be an intake or exhaust over here. This can also do up to 420mm radiator. Both of these have mounts for 120 or 140mm fans as well. And then you've got 120 or 140 at the back. Then along the bottom here, you can add more fans. Thermaltake told me that they've been doing some smoke testing with this case and it has very good airflow. But since we do have we actually have 4 tempered glass pieces, and I have not taken the protective plastic off of them yet, but you can see with this one. But these just attach with the little plugs that plug in and hold it in place. Of course, air cannot pass through tempered glass, and that is why you'll probably want to have some intake down here at the bottom, just to make sure that you're feeding your GPU and your CPU with plenty of airflow. Also looking at the motherboard tray back here, you'll notice these cutouts. These are for reverse connector motherboards that have the connectors on the back rather than the front. We're not making use of these today. We have a regular standard connector motherboard, but MSI, Gigabyte, and Asus all make boards that are compatible with that standard now. You might also notice that this is full-size ATX case. It also supports large hardware, including up to eATX motherboards. As Thermaltake has been doing for some time with their cases, they have put ventilation like everywhere with this pattern that they have going along here. It looks nice, it lets plenty of airflow through, and they've also continued that across the top. And in case you're wondering, this top panel just has a couple thumb screws, which when unthumb screwed, allow you to pull the panel back and pop that off to access the top for mounting your fans, your radiator, or other stuff, you know, if you're doing like a custom water-cooled build or something like that in this case. The panel down here also pops off in the same way that those tempered glass side pieces do, so that makes it very modular and also very accessible for getting to your power supply area down here, for example. If you need to route cables or maybe access a plug on the power supply that's over on this side, which might be tougher to access if you're going from the typical side panel access point. And then this panel here is the one that we're going to be replacing with our 6-inch LCD, which again has the nice matched Future Dusk finish. And as you can see on the back of this, it also just attaches with those plugs, so I'm going to assume that's what I can, yep. So that's how that pops off too. You'd have a hard drive cage down there at the bottom for 3.5-inch or 2.5-inch drives. Our LCD just has a USB Type-C plug that I am going to need to plug in, but just to show you guys how easy it is to swap that in. There it is. So just like Thermaltake has been doing with like the tower cases and stuff, I really like just how easy it is to pop all these panels off to access the interior. For shipping the case, and if you're a system integrator and you're building in this case, or for Thermaltake's purposes of shipping the case to end users, it does have screws for the side panels, especially the tempered glass side panel on that side. That's to secure it during shipping. So just note that for the main side panels, you will need to remove that screw before you pop that off. And there you can see we also have a dust filter for our side intake or exhaust, held on by magnets. Pops back into place like that. And there's the mostly disassembled case frame where you can see cable management area. Not an official measurement, but we got about that much depth in terms of cable management. A couple more 2.5-inch drive mounts there. And the frame for this side mount is removable, so you can remove that with the screw here and a couple more down there, so you can pop that off in order to mount your fans, radiator, or whatever you need to mount, and then install the entire thing together. And if you are going to do a larger radiator or additional fans, this panel right here also removes to give you space to install that. Oh, and yes, the same goes for this top panel. That can also be unscrewed with screws, so you can do your mounting and then install it all together. Oh yeah, and we can't forget the I/O. We got the power button up here, a couple USB 3.0 Type A ports, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C, mic and headphone, and a reset button. And finally, here's a look at the bottom of the case. You can see we got some nice wide rubber feet, so it stays nice and stable. And then we have a removable dust filter that slides out the front like so. That's going to help keep your bottom intakes as well as your power supply dust filtered. Pops back in a pretty satisfying way too. We're just getting the motherboard set up. CPU installation, of course, our 9800X3D is installed. We got our memory installed in the proper RAM slots for dual channel mode. But I forgot something when I was going over the parts. Did you guys notice? I didn't list any storage for this build. This came in a little bit late. I'm actually going to do a 2-drive setup here. I've got a Kioxia XG6 1TB, so this is going to be for our operating system. And then I have a Crucial P3 Plus that is still en route. That one is going to be a 2TB drive, but of course we want to make sure we install these on the proper slots. We have 4 M.2s on this motherboard, 01, 02, 03, and 04. 01 and 02 are Gen 5 drives that are directly controlled by the CPU. This drive is not going to use up all that bandwidth, but I'd still rather populate the direct to CPU slots before I go with the slots that run through the chipset, just to make sure we're not hitting any bottlenecks there if we're doing a lot of I/O at the same time. So I'm going to install this drive to slot 2. That way when we install our graphics card, it's going to be over that, and it will leave this upper slot available so I can drop in that 2TB drive once it arrives without having to remove the GPU. The build is proceeding. We now have our first look at the contrast between our bright green cable extensions and the purple. And you know, for anything but October Halloween builds, I guess I'm a little torn about the aesthetic choices for this build, but I think it's working for now, and it's gonna look cool with the black lights installed. I loosened the screws on the top radiator mount so I could shift it over a little bit, because we wanna make sure we have enough tubing that it can proceed in a graceful arc there once our CPU cooler is mounted. So I'm just gonna shift it towards the back a little bit more before tightening it down. And now for our oh so delicate CPU cooler mounting. And lastly, well, not quite lastly, we have to plug stuff in, but the LCD panel for the MagFlow 360 Ultra has some contact points down here. So it pops off for installation, and then it goes back on like that. This has been a pretty fun build to put together. We've handled a lot of stuff. The fan installation, we did flip the fan blades. So the side fans here and the bottom fans are all acting as intakes. So we have positive pressure with the top exhausting and the back exhausting. And yes, because Joe noticed when we swapped out the SWA-fan swappable blades, that's why they're called SWA-fan, we added a little bit more of the lubricant there in the center. It says you only need to do that after you like remove and replace the blades multiple times, but you know, more lubricant is never a bad thing, right? And as far as I know. Anyway, if we're gonna have like heavy criticism for this build, it's totally warranted because instead of using the native 12VH power connector that comes with the power supply, I of course made the aesthetic choice of using a cable mod extension. Cable mod has 12VH power connectors, but this actually uses the PCI Express connector. So we have 3 of those on this side going to that 12VH power connector. You might also have noticed that we had a PCI Express cable down here at the bottom that I plugged in. That's supplemental power for the motherboard that's not really needed unless you're doing like heavy GPU overclocking or you have multiple devices if you're really sucking a lot of power from the board. I was gonna plug that in too, but then I realized I would have needed to use one of these daisy chains coming off of our PCI Express connectors. And I just don't want to do anything more beyond this direct plug-in of the 12VH power adapter cable. So that cable down there, just full disclosure, is not connected to anything. It's there purely for aesthetics, but hopefully it will light up and look pretty once we have the UV cable, the blacklight installed. All right, I'm doing like initial cable management here just to get things tucked away. And then we have the final step for this part of the build, which is to install our MSI Expert RTX 5080 graphics card, which is a pretty chunky boy. You know, it's a decent size, triple slot cooler on there. I'm just gonna remove the rear PCI Express brackets, the expansion slot brackets. Gotta remove the slot protector for our PCI Express edge connector too. And then this motherboard, like a lot of motherboards lately, has this cool feature. It's one that I really like, which it has a button right here that you can push to engage or disengage the PCI Express latch for the graphics card. So just making sure that that is disengaged and it's going to engage when we install this. See if I can do it sideways here. Firm pressure, snap, very satisfying. There we go. All right, our GPU is secured and the build is, I will say, hopefully, functionally complete. So we're just gonna do a quick test boot to make sure it boots. All right, fingers crossed. These fans have 0 fan mode. That's what I'm guessing that is. I think all the fans are plugged in. Well, the AIO fans are running, so that's important. Oh look, a screen is lighting up down there too. Okay, we do appear to have a first boot. We have some fans that aren't spinning up. All these fans from Thermaltake split off into 2 leads. One has an ARGB connector for the RGB. The other one has a standard fan header. So those are plugged into various fan headers on the motherboard. This board might have 0 fan mode set up for some of the fan headers, so I'm not 100% sure about that, but gonna do a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of tuning to make sure that everything is functional or to double check that I didn't accidentally not plug something in that's supposed to be plugged in. And from there, we'll move on with aesthetic considerations, such as the addition of our LED blacklights. This has a USB connector. Another thing that I might need to figure out exactly how it works. All right, so, ooh, look at that. Actually, the fans appear to be UV reactive as well. So you can see we got a really nice pop from our cable extensions there. Obviously, we need to get the RGB software set up and everything so we can control that properly. But I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. I think I'll run a quick test or two just to make sure everything is working properly there, but give me a few moments. I'll be right back, hopefully with some sexy B-roll of the finished build. Okay, I'm back. Let me bring you up to speed with how I got the build to the state that it's in now. It's looking pretty good, right? I kind of like the green and purple kind of offset, especially since it is like a Halloween theme. But getting back to that first boot, you probably noticed that most of the fans were not lighting up and spinning. That was merely because the magnetic connectors on these fans, which are very convenient, but they can be a little bit finicky. So if they get jostled or if they get pulled a little bit off of their mounts, if you're doing cable management, they might need to be reseated. And that's all I really had to do was pretty much pulling them off, snapping them back on, got the fans to start spinning, got the LEDs LEDs to light up. I did do a little bit of cable management in the back, but since there is so much space to work with, it's pretty easy to just shove the extra cables in where they need to go. And then I did loosen up the screws on the top radiator, and I shifted it this way to the left as far as possible, just to give us a little bit more droopage on the AIO tubing so that we can get a better view of the LCD screen on the AIO, because why have an LCD screen if it's going to be blocked? Then the final thing I did to get the PC functionally operational was install our crucial P3 Plus 2TB SSD to get a little bit more storage. And thankfully with the tool-free M.2 slot cover and also it being the top slot which wasn't blocked, that wasn't too difficult to pop in there. From there, after doing a UEFI update on the motherboard, getting Windows all installed and up to date, and installing the proper drivers, I did do a quick test of 3D Mark x SPI Extreme. Overall score was 13,709, graphics score was 16,391, CPU score was 7,115, and that is all right where there should be for the hardware that we have installed. We're not doing any overclocking at this point. The maximum GPU temperature on our MSI RTX 5080 Expert was 68.3 Celsius. The memory temperature only got up to 70 degrees Celsius, and the GPU was boosting to 2,895 megahertz, again, without any overclocking or tweaking on my part. Then our 9800X 3D CPU, which is being cooled by the MagFlow 360, hit 81 degrees Celsius max temperature, and that was during the CPU stress test. Our average and CCD temperatures were all in the low 70s though, so again, that is right where it should be for this CPU, especially when being cooled by an AIO. And with that, I could theoretically wrap up this video, but you probably remember from the intro, I showed off some black lights, some UV lighting that I was intending to add, and I've also made some possibly controversial choices with this build, specifically geared towards aesthetics. The main one's probably the use of the 12VH power extension rather than going with the native one that comes with the power supply, but nothing seems to be melting yet, and I'm going to leave it up to the eventual winner of this build whether they want me to leave that in, swap to the native one, or they can make that decision once they get the system themselves. But I do want to make one more aesthetic pass at this system, specifically to see how it looks like with the black lights. And let me tell you, I've actually been testing these and I love how this looks with the black lights, because we have a purple case. The future Dusk finish is quite purpley. The black lights give a lot of the UV reactive stuff in here, which includes the rings around these fans, sort of a purplish glow. And especially with the green there, it's just got this fantastic look that I feel like goes so well with sort of the Halloweenish kind of creepy theme of this build. The green on the cable extensions is also glowing with the black lights. So just holding it up and looking at it, I was like, wow, that looks so cool. It really sets everything off. The only downside is this being the View 600 case, it has quite a view, and there's not really many good places for me to sort of tuck away and hide my black lights to where they'll hit the stuff I want them to hit, but not also sort of standing out. Like, I'd love to put one vertically right here, but that would be pretty visible. I did get these ones that have this housing, and I also have some individual strips that are magnetic and just plug in via a Molex connector. So if you guys can give me just a few more seconds, I'm gonna see if I can make this build a little bit more Halloweeny, sure, because I've also got some spiderwebs and spiders. Maybe I can use the spiderwebs to hide the LED strips. That is a bit more like it, I think. This is obviously the most aesthetically pleasing Halloween-themed PC build that you've probably ever seen, but it's not the craziest Halloween-themed build I've ever done. That would be the time that I built a PC in a Big Mac pumpkin. I made a PC Master Race Jack-o'-lantern PC. That one lived for about 2 or 3 days. This one should hold up a little bit longer, I think, and while I do not have much advice for any of you who might be suffering from a spider infestation in your PC, I will recommend for those decorating a PC with fake spider webs, keep in mind which fans are intakes and which fans are exhaust. It actually helped that we have positive pressure in this case because those were blowing the spider webs away, whereas at the back and at the top, they were trying to suck the spider webs in just a little bit. Thankfully, we have Thermaltake swap fans and they can just be popped off the hub if you need to clean any spider webs out of there. Hey, added extra feature of the swap fans, right? But if you're wondering how I decorated this in such an immaculate way, there were 2 secrets to my success. One is blue tack. Obviously it's magic and it can do just about anything, but that's also why some of the decorations in here, only blue tack holding those in place, as well as some of the spider webs. I used a little bit of electrical tape as well to hold the spider webs in, as well as mounting it here and there, like using the case side panels and stuff like that. But I will be having a discussion with the eventual winner of this build, whether they want me to sort of leave it as is or remove the Halloween decorations so this can be a little bit more viable for long-term use. You might wonder how I'm controlling the RGB as well as the LCD screens. Thermaltake has their RGB Plus software that is controlling the LCD screens as well as the memory. And then I also have the MSI Center app installed, which is actually a big group of applications, but through that you can install Mystic Light in order to control the LED headers on the motherboard and stuff connected to them. I did have a cool candlelight effect going on, time where I did a couple different shades of green that looked really cool, but it was actually switching back to RGB vomit way too frequently. So I went with a solid green, but I do like how the green shines through, and then the UV LEDs provide a little bit more of that sort of glowing purplish light. And those are also lighting up the spider webs a little bit. These lighter colored spiders are supposed to glow too, but they're not really like jumping out quite as much, so I added some black spiders in there for contrast. One other thing about the Thermaltake RGB Plus software is if you don't want to go for the aesthetic view on the LCD screens, you can do an overlay that shows like your CPU temperature or your GPU temperature, more useful stuff besides just like a spiderweb animation with water dripping like it's raining. But with all of that said, I think we can wrap up this video. I want to say a final thank you to Thermaltake for sponsoring this video, providing the Thermaltake components that you see here, as well as MSI for providing both the MAG X870E Tomahawk motherboard and the GeForce RTX 5080 Expert graphics card. Those both worked out so well. A final reminder, if you haven't marked your calendar, Kyle and I will be doing an Extra Life charity stream on December 6th. We're gonna have PC giveaways and we're gonna have a lot of fun. This giveaway is open right now, so you can enter via the link in the video description. All you need to do is visit our Extra Life donation page. You do not need to donate, but that is, of course, always appreciated. It's for a very good cause. This giveaway is just gonna be up for a couple of weeks, so subscribe to my channel and check my community posts as I'll be announcing the winner and requesting that the winner answers my email to claim their prize. And then for the November and December builds, I'll have those overlap with the charity live stream itself. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. A final thanks to Thermaltake and MSI. Hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. Check the description down below for links to all the parts that I used. Happy Halloween, and we'll see you all in the next video.